So before we get started, I would like to thank you guys so much for your support. Passing 300 subscribers means a whole lot to me. Now, have you ever thought you hated your job? Well, these experiences may have you reconsider. Luckily, Darkness Prevails will be joining us today. You can visit this amazing narrator by clicking on his icon. So, without further hesitation, let's begin. Number 1.
This is a true story that happened to me a few years ago. I still get freaked out anytime I think about it, so let me share it with you. A few years ago, I was a supervisor for a security company. I worked in the patrol division. We would basically patrol various clients' properties through the night. We had businesses as well as residential. We also responded to calls from residents on the properties. Most were harmless. Drunk, loud people usually. Parties that get out of hand. One night I got a call about a suspicious person walking around some townhomes. This area is pretty quiet, surrounded by woods, and it was more middle class than the others. After getting the notice, I arrive on the property about 10 minutes later and drive to the area. I shut off my vehicle and take a look around. As I am walking near the woods, I hear something walking not far from me. Now there are deer and other animals in those woods, but this one seemed to not only keep pace with me, but stop when I stop. I shine my flashlight into the woods, but I couldn't see anything. Not finding anything unusual, I go back to my vehicle and write my report, just saying that it was probably kids messing around. I leave and go about my night. About 2 hours later, I get another call. This time the caller said someone was looking into their window, but could not give a description. I go back this time, running with no lights on. I get out of my vehicle in a different area facing the woods. With the dome light disabled, I open the door, leaving it cracked, and proceed around the houses. Again, I do not find anything except a handprint on the window in question. I walk close to the woods on the way back to my vehicle. I was standing about 20 feet in front of it, but right by the woods. Suddenly, I hear a rough voice say, Hey, come here." Thinking it was a prank, I say, "All right, you've had your fun, but you're scaring the residents. Come out and talk to me." Again, I hear from the woods, "No, you come here and we will have some fun." Insert creepy chuckle. At this time, I am freaking out. It is dark. I'm alone, even if the police or a phone call away. I try to play it cool. I reply, "Whatever, just stay off the property." I turn to go when I hear someone in the woods moving. Then, in a loud voice, I hear, "Don't turn your back on me. I said get in here, or you will pay." That was it. I was 100% terrified. I turned fast, drawing my 9mm as I did, pointing it and my flashlight into the woods, saying, "So much as show your face, I'm going to shoot. I'm calling the police." I didn't get a response. I went back to my vehicle, turning on all the lights. Headlight, spotlight, and light bar, all of them shining onto the woods. I called the cops. We are well known and generally liked by the police, so it only takes a few minutes for them to respond. They have me wait a while they check the woods. A few minutes later, one calls over for me to come to him. There, 40 feet into the woods, is a nightmare. There is a homemade hunting blind set up, a shovel, a tarp, and a shallow pit. The police never found the person, and no one had seen him since that night. I still don't know what to make of it. Was it a harmless prank, or a killer waiting for me in those woods? The 2 calls that night were made from a prepaid cell phone. All the residents said that they never made any calls, so I assume it was him. I quit my job shortly after that. I don't think I could handle another situation that weird.
Number 2. So, it's 11:30 p.m., and I'm making my nightly rounds, making sure all doors are locked before I start my nightly cleaning routine. I'm a janitor at one of the many Gold's gyms. This Gold's gym is hidden from the road enough to where the doors aren't too visible from the highway. I won't lie, it creeps me out sometimes working here alone until 3 a.m., so I always make sure to bring headphones to listen to my music. I also make sure to leave all the lights on and have weapons hidden in each room as I clean. I'm minding my own business, mopping the main floor by the front desk and getting ready to turn on my music. That's when I hear loud banging on the glass. I look up and see nothing. I feel chills. The window shows nothing but pitch black night sky. I shake my head and go to press play. But then more banging. This time it's even louder. I run to the front of the gym to see a man. He is pressed against the window staring at me. He is dressed in a hoodie and sweatpants and looks to be in his 30s. His eyes looked bloodshot, as if he was exhausted. "Sorry, we are closed," I say nervously. I try to show that I'm not scared, but my heart is pounding a little too fast. "I left my gym shoes," he says flatly. "You will have to come back tomorrow," I say. He stands there and doesn't say anything. Moments go by and I feel like an idiot just standing there. A creepy smirk appears across his face. "Have a good night," he says a little too happily. He walks off into the darkness. I shake my head and tell myself to calm down. I decide it's best not to play music at this time. I need to make sure this man really left. I, being a man myself, know that I'm a pretty strong guy, but this guy looked built. It honestly freaks me out. But I started cleaning again. As I keep telling myself, there is nothing to be scared of, I hear a loud bang come from the back of the gym. I feel my breath catch inside my throat. I hear it again, louder this time. I inhale deeply as I reach for my knife. I slowly make my way to the back door. I hear a constant banging as I grow closer. Luckily, the back door is solid metal and sturdy. I know it's locked, but I can see the vibrations with each bang. What makes it even creepier is, I swear I hear snarling and growling. I put my hand on the door and hold my knife up with the other. Just then, the banging stops. "Go away, or I will call the police," I manage to choke out. I can hear a man's laugh. "They can't save you," he groans. I run away from the door as quickly as I can to the manager's office. I lock myself into the room and grab my cell phone to dial 911. Just as it starts ringing, the power to the gym goes off. I let out a huge gasp. 911, what's the emergency?" a woman says from the other line. "Please help me. Someone is trying to break into the gym." I hear glass shatter. "I think he just broke in." "Okay, sir. I need you to stay calm. Where are you located?" she asks. As I start to reply, I hear footsteps outside the door. I get down behind the desk next to me. 412 Southern Plaza, off Brook Road, I whisper. "Okay, sir. Just stay on the line. Cops are on their way," she says assuringly. I start to reply when laughter comes from the other side of the door. "I can smell you. You smell so scared," a rusky voice bellows. I gulp. Sweat is pouring down my forehead. "Sir, are you there?" the 911 operator asks. "Yes," I whisper. "The cops won't make it by the time I get through this door," the voice yells. "Please, you can take anything you want. Just leave me alone," I yell, trying to sound non-frightened. I grip my knife close to me, and I look around for weapons in case I have to fight. "You know, you're right. I think I will let this be a warning. When you least expect it, I will find you, and I will come for you. It could be at your house, in the quiet neighborhood, the place where you go to play cards every Friday, or here, where you're all alone every night 6 days a week." I can't catch my breath as I realize this man must be stalking me. Who are you?" I yell. The man laughs devilishly. "You will see me in time." I hear footsteps getting fainter. Then I hear cop sirens in the background, so I hung up the cell phone. I don't come out from under the desk until a cop busts down the door. When they lead me out, I see the front windows are shattered. I tell them everything, and they take it all down. They suggest I go nowhere alone and always have a weapon on me. I proceeded to take it a step further. I now have moved, switched jobs, and my weekly routine. I will take no chances.
Number 3.
This is probably not what you were expecting, but here we go. I used to work for a relatively small security company. It was privately owned, and about 30 employees were there altogether. They'd get a contract with a factory, and then basically your job was to sit in that factory for 8 to 12 hours when no one was working. So I'd be working by myself, alone, overnight, in a completely empty factory. In my 2 years of doing that job, I never one time saw a single thing I would call supernatural. However, I did see Dennis. One night, my captain calls me on my phone and tells me a new trainee will be coming in the morning at about 5. I had to show him the ropes, teach him how to make the rounds. You walk around the building, that's basically what making a round is. So it's about 4:45 in the morning, and I step outside of the parking lot to have a smoke and wait on the new guy. After about 10 minutes, a car pulls up, stops, backs up, and drives away. I was clearly visible, so I have no idea why he left, but the car passed by 3 to 4 more times before finally pulling in and shutting off the engine. I can see him in the car, and he's just sitting in the driver's seat, staring at me. In the back seat are 2 kids probably around 6 to 8 years old. After about 3 minutes of me wondering what the hell is going on, he gets out of the car. Dennis is fucked up looking. He's about 4'10" and fatter than damn near anyone I've ever seen. He has a huge rash covering about 70% of his body, with a white crust outlining most of it. And then he speaks. Had a little trouble finding the place. His voice is high-pitched, I mean really high-pitched. I'm talking Judge Doom in the final scene of Who Framed Roger Rabbit high-pitched. Then he extends one hand to shake mine. Without thinking much, I shake it. There's one finger on it. Just one. And the rest of the hand looks like some kind of stumpy flesh mitten. One of the kids gets out of the car, has the same rash, is also very fat, is also missing fingers. He says, "Daddy, can I get a drink?" Dennis turns around and screams in that high-pitched voice, "Get back in the damn car and don't get out again." I'm in fucking shock, so I take the guy around the factory, show him the perimeter, tell him where the emergency stuff is. About a minute into our walk, I notice this guy smells like hell. I mean, he literally reeks of sweat and fresh diarrhea. The whole time he's asking me strange questions like, "Do you have a crush on anyone that works here?" Or, "Can I hunt on this property?" He finally leaves after standing in the office trying to make small talk with me for about 15 minutes after the tour. On his way out, he said, "We're gonna be good friends, even if you don't think so." I went home about 2 hours later and stood in the shower for a good solid hour, washing myself, trying to get the image of that guy out of my head. I called my captain and asked him to reassign me someplace else. Never had to see him again. That's been more than 10 years, and the thought of Dennis still bothers me.
Number 4.
I used to work second shift at a hospital, 3 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. One thing I've learned about hospital folks is, if you ask them if the hospital is haunted, there's an extremely high chance they'll say yes and tell you stories. One night it was extremely slow on our floor. We sat around and the nurses told scary stories. My shift ended, so I went to leave. I was the only person who left at that time, so I got in the elevator by myself. An important note here is, we were working on the 9th and topmost floor. I had, on many occasions, gone up the single flight of stairs and out the door to the roof to watch a life flight helicopter take off from the ground. So, I'm getting on the elevator to leave, and I push the button to the parking garage. The doors close, and I'm relaxing and leaning against the back wall, thinking about all those ghost stories I just heard. I look up at the display to watch the floor numbers progress, when I see the up arrow glowing. That's impossible. I'm on the top floor. I watch fully, expecting the arrow to switch directions, when the car starts moving up. My eyes are wide open right now. This should be physically impossible. There is no 10th floor in this hospital. I'm fairly sure this elevator is taking me to hell right now. The car slowly stops, and the doors open. It's a blank, unmarked hallway. It's really dark, only being lit from the elevator lights and the single emergency light at the end of the hall. I stick my head out just enough to peek out the door. All I can see is this dark hallway with some really old hospital beds without mattresses. After a few seconds of perfect silence, the elevator dings and the doors close. The arrow points downwards and takes me to the parking garage. I told my story to a couple nurses the next night. Apparently, it was a floor only used for storage, and you're not supposed to be able to get to it without this special key. No one had an explanation for why it took me there, other than someone pushing the call button on that floor.
Number 5.
I work for one of Australia's biggest telcos in their operational security department. My team is unlike all of the others in that we work out at a special restricted site since we handle very sensitive data. Every morning I have to drive through a security gate and have my pass vetted by one of the 2 guards, then park in the nearly empty lot and pass through 2 more security doors and get by another guard before I even make it to the stairs. The buildings on the site were built in the 70s and 80s, and as far as I can tell, they haven't been updated since. The lights are old fluorescent tubes with ancient air conditioning ducts spewing dust onto our heads, and the only lift is a cranky fire hazard that grumbles its way up and down the cables. Luckily, my team is on the 1st floor, so it's not too stressful to climb 1 flight of stairs. The bathrooms especially are particularly disturbing. As you can probably imagine, despite the company's best efforts to be inclusive in its hiring practices, there are very few women in the building. The men's toilets on the floor are large and have been recently renovated, but the few women have been relegated to an ancient room beside the photocopiers. Accessing that bathroom is strange, in that you have to pass through 2 lockable doors, the inner of which swings outwards and the outer of which swings inwards, and trap you between them for a few seconds. The space is so small, you have to close one in order to open the other, and there are no lights in that tiny space. Each of the doors has a narrow window in it, of the type of glass that makes figures look as though they've been blurred. On the day in particular, I was working late. There had been a minor security incident, and I was on a long phone call working through it with my manager, 2 of my teammates, and a few other people in other departments. It was heading for winter, so it was getting dark early, and the sun had set by the time the incident was solved. I needed to finish up a few emails, so I stayed seated at my desk when my teammates left. Needless to say, I was now alone on the floor. I finished my emails and spent some time cleaning up my inbox. You'd be surprised how quickly unread emails pile up after hours, and it's always bugged me to have too many. Now, the 2 doors leading to the women's toilets had a very specific pair of squeaks. They both had matching laborious "ee" sounds, always followed by a heavy clunk of a door hitting the frame too hard. And it surprised me to hear first one door and then the other grudgingly open and close. It was rare to hear those doors even during daylight, but right then, I was pretty sure I was alone on the floor, and even then, surely I was the only woman. I waited, breathless, for any sound. I turned my chair around and watched the outer door clearly visible over the top of the cubicle walls, waiting for a repeat performance. It stayed mute and motionless, but I couldn't bring myself to either turn around and resume working or to get up and go investigate. I'm not an idiot after all. While I was thus occupied watching a door that wouldn't move, I heard the distinct tapping of feet coming down the stairs from one of the upper floors. Assuming it was someone else going home, I ignored it, continuing to focus on the silent door. The footsteps on the stairs paused halfway down, and this time I spun around subtly to glance at whoever was standing there on the stairs, only to discover no one was there. At this point, I was ready to nope the fuck out of there when there was suddenly a third sound. There's a large plaster dividing wall down the middle of the building with a walkway punched through it, approximately halfway through, and I sit with that walkway to my direct left and my back to the main aisle between the cubicles. As I stared at the stairs, trying to logic my way through these impossibilities, through the plaster walkway I heard a distant whistling tune. It was so out of place on the silent floor that despite the cheerful sound, my blood chilled and I started shaking. The whistling got closer, heading for the gap in the plaster wall, and my heart hammered against my ribs. My mouth went dry, and tears formed as whatever it was made its way toward me. The bathroom doors banged again behind me, first one, then the other. I stood with a startled yelp and knocked over my chair, turning to look at the loud doors. My legs were shaking, and my fingers were like ice as I stood in the middle of an empty floor and just waited. Even the smell of the place had changed. The sense of 30-year-old dust and layers of people were gone, and instead, it was replaced with a hard metallic tang of unidentifiable origin. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, the lights in my row flickered and took on that purplish demi-glow of sulky fluoros. The bathroom doors audibly smashed again, and I collapsed onto the floor, skidding across the old carpeting to shelter under my desk in the darkness. Clutching my knees, I closed my eyes, tears falling freely, as that distant whistling picked up again, and an equally distant phone started to ring. Something thundered up and down the stairs, invisible feet beating every step, and the whistling started getting closer and closer. It remained cheery and unperturbed, despite the elephantine levels of noise from the stairs and the awkward banging of the bathroom doors. I huddled under my desk as the sinister, cheerful noise passed by. Whatever it was stopped next to my desk, and I held my breath. All of a sudden, the lights came back on, the darkness disappeared from the floor, the bathroom doors remained blissfully quiet, and the stairs were apparently unoccupied. It took me almost 10 minutes to brave crawling out from under the desk, and still shaky, I righted my chair and sat down to shut my computer off. As my body slowly calmed down, I tried to rationalize what had happened. Wind creating the whistling noise, weird air pressure currents that made the doors bang, ancient wiring causing the lights to turn off. I packed up my laptop and headed downstairs cautiously, just in case. I said goodnight to the guard at the front desk, and he looked up from the poor quality CTV screens with a friendly smile. "You guys are always up there working so late. At least you're not the last one to leave tonight." Frowning, I wandered over and looked at the CTV screens and gasped. Standing there, unmoving in the middle of the first floor landing, was a blurry figure. The screen flicked automatically over to another view, and after 10 seconds or so flicked back to the first camera, and the figure was gone. As I watched, the lights on that floor went out again. The guard frowned with obvious confusion. "That's odd. It shouldn't be turning off if someone's up there." He glanced at me. After all, the lights up there are motion controlled.
I think I'll stick with the day shift. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and don't forget to check out Darkness Prevails. Also, feel free to subscribe for more. You guys stay safe out there. Until next time.